Sadly, we don't require someone with your kind of impairment. Do your utmost to survive. On the table? What is this? That's what the letter that was addressed to me said. I have impairments in both of my legs from birth. I must have been considered a nuisance in comparison to my sister, who is handicap-free. I then received a call from my father on my smartphone. Hey, Odessa. Have you read the letter? I tried to read it, but that's what it means. Goodbye. Pause for a moment. Or is there another thing? What is the meaning of this letter? The meaning is precisely as written. We're done providing for a daughter such as you. Ignore our concerns. The call abruptly ended at that point. I called my mother after considering my options for a response. Hey, Mom. I assume you have read the letter based on your response. I am a bothersome person because I am disabled, as though I'm a monster of some sort. Yes, but you don't have to worry about anything. I reside in a high-rise flat, and it was 8 years after those terrible comments that my father made his appearance. How can someone with a disability like you live in a place like this? Well, I can tell you. My father was upset and found it difficult to handle it when I told him the secret. I go by Odessa. This year will mark my 26th birthday. I currently have a pleasant life in a high-rise condo on the 55th level. But there were numerous challenges in pursuing this lifestyle. My hereditary illness, which weakens my muscles, is one of the causes. My father said something that will never go away. That must have been in kindergarten, I believe. Why did you have to be born as someone who has a disability? You know it's your fault? Amy does not have any handicap and is in good health. My sister Amy is 2 years older than I am. I was listening to my parents talk in the living room at the time. With emergency supplies nearby, my room was close to the living room. I could feel the discontent aimed at me even as a small child. There's no need to say such things. From now on, you take care of Odessa. What are you saying? Do you even have any awareness of being a father? Please, I'm leaving the rest to you. Quietly, I covered myself with the futon. From that day onwards, their attitude towards me became noticeably colder and harsher. Even when I spoke to them, I did not receive appropriate responses. Indeed, my congenital physical disabilities might have been the cause. Afterward, my mother has always been considerate to ensure I do not worry. Despite such circumstances, I actively do what I can on my own, and I do not feel pessimistic about being born with this condition. I particularly feel the strong influence of my sister and how I perceive things. I overslept a bit. I was up late last night. Sorry about that. No problem. I managed to get dressed on my own for the most part. I'll help you. Thanks, but first you need to get ready, sis. Since elementary school, my sister Amy had been helping me with my morning preparations. However, my father didn't approve of this, often complaining. How long do you intend to keep doing this? It'll be over soon. Odessa should be able to do it herself. Come here, you can do it, right? Yes, while changing, Amy came to help me without our father noticing. Sorry about earlier. Don't worry about it. I can't always rely on you. During this, Amy gently hugged me. What's wrong all of a sudden? It's okay, Odessa. I'll protect you. Then I'll do my best to protect you too, sis. From such exchanges, I felt that our bond as sisters deepened even more. We made a point not to talk much in front of our father. We thought he might say something if he saw us being close. Then I'm off. Okay. Take care. Father would sometimes give up his days off and go to work several times a month. Those days felt like a relief for me. Usually, when I was playing games, I would often be scolded harshly. Today, since Dad isn't here, let's play games to our heart's content. Okay, yes, but let's not overdo it. Don't worry. After that, my sister and I enjoyed playing video games in the living room. About 2 hours must have passed. At that time, our mother had gone shopping. I heard the front door open and thought that Mom had returned. "What are you doing?" When I turned around, it was my father's voice. "Dad, why are you here? What happened to work?" "I came back because I forgot something. Where's Mom?" "She went shopping." "So what are you two doing?" "Tell me." Confronted with my father's gaze, I froze in fear. My body felt as if it had turned to stone. Sensing this, my sister tried to protect me. "We were just playing a game, but I was the one who suggested it. Odessa hasn't done anything wrong." "Is that true?" "It's true." With that, my father forcefully pulled my sister's arm. Seeing this, I worried that he might harm her in some way. At that moment, I felt a responsibility to protect my sister. I wanted to do it, and I asked Amy to join me, so please don't hurt her. "I see. So you instigated this after all. Go back to your room." "Understood." As instructed, I returned to my room. A small consolation was that our house was built with wheelchair accessibility in mind. I could hear my father yelling from afar. I deeply regretted my own powerlessness at that moment. The door to my room opened. I tensed up, thinking it was my father, but it was actually my mother. "Is everything okay?" "I'm fine, but how is Sis?" "Yes, she's all right too." Something felt off about my mother's response, and I tried to head to the living room. "Where are you going?" "I have to save my sister." "There's no need to worry. If you go there, you might provoke your father again." "I understand. I'll stay here." My mother was right. If I went, it might have worsened the situation. I decided to trust my mother's reassurance. "I'm sorry. I wish I were stronger." Due to my father's domineering nature, my mother always tried not to provoke him. "Don't worry about it. I'm grateful for you," she would say. After a while, my sister came into the room. "Sis, father has gone to work, so there's no more trouble." "I see. Did he say anything to you?" "Yes, a little. But you don't have to worry, Odessa." "I'm okay. My sister has always been someone who acts cheerfully, no matter the circumstances." The struggle wasn't only mine. My sister was suffering too. Moreover, my mother was making efforts to mitigate the anger my father directed towards me. I was always living with the help of others, and I was trying to find a way to not be a burden to them. When my sister entered middle school, she began to distance herself a bit from me. Previously, she had helped with everyday tasks like dressing and using the restroom. I knew she was busy with club activities and friends, so I tried to accept it as inevitable. I told myself that I just had to endure. I needed to become stronger. At that time, not only my legs but also my hands had significantly weakened. It had become even more difficult to lift heavy objects, but giving up was not an option. One day, I was organizing my room and rearranging the shelves. That was the moment. Perhaps I leaned too much on the shelf and it shook. Items from the top fell down. Ouch! I need to pick these up quickly. But sitting in the wheelchair, I couldn't reach the floor. While I was earnestly trying, suddenly the door opened. What's all this noise? What is going on here? It was the worst possible timing, especially since I did not want my father to witness this. Well, though I tried to respond, I couldn't find the right words. It seemed to my father like I was making excuses. "Who do you think will clean this up?" That is, I had no memory of my father ever helping. If there were any such memories, they were minimal and unspoken. "Why do you always do unnecessary things?" He sighed in frustration. Showing him that expression directly wouldn't make him understand. His nagging continued endlessly. "Unlike Amy, you can't do anything. Do you understand that?" "I might not be able to do as much as her, but I want to do what I can by myself. If I was going to be scolded anyway, I decided to express my feelings to my father, hoping even slightly that he might understand. Do you think you can do that? Yes. Next, he laughed out loud. You say funny things. You? Capable of doing things? How could someone with disabilities like you ever be capable? Though I expected rejection, being completely dismissed was another matter. His laugh continued. It was not an appropriate response to his daughter. From that moment, I shut down my thoughts. I was just waiting for time to pass. Hey, are you listening? I didn't respond at all. What's the matter with you? You really are strange. After saying that, my father left the room. Alone, my tears spilled over. From that day, even as a child, I decided not to cry anymore. Afterward, my mother mostly took care of me. My father did not help at all. It seemed as if he had no interest. Hey, do you have a fever? Really, I don't know. You should rest today. No, I'm fine. I can go to school. I was desperate to convince my mother, but she worried something might happen to me and decided that I should stay home that day. The main reason I wanted to go to school was because my father happened to have taken the day off. Honestly, I wanted to avoid spending time alone with him, but something unexpected happened. Are you okay? When my father entered the room and spoke to me, I pretended to be asleep to avoid interacting. However, he did not leave the room right away. I covered myself with the blanket and watched apprehensively. I'll leave this here for you. Eventually, I sat up. On the table, there were sports drinks and jelly prepared. I felt a surprising joy. It was an experience I had never had before. My thoughts were in turmoil. What was his intention in doing this? That day, my father visited my room several times. Each time, I pretended to be asleep. Feeling better? My mother asked when she returned from work. Yeah, I don't think I have a fever. Did something happen? Kind of. Dad seemed kind today. That's good then. Good? What do you mean? Well, I actually asked your father to take care of you today. Really? It seems okay so far. It's more like I'm just surprised because we haven't really talked. I haven't processed it yet. I was strict with him. I told him he needs to be kinder to you, Odessa. My emotions were mixed. Despite trying not to get affected in any way, I was confused about what I should feel or do. Then, as my mother said, my father's attentiveness increased. He began to take care of me more actively, and gradually we even started having conversations. It seems like your relationship with Dad is getting better. Do you think so? I'd be happy if you two could get along. But I still think about the past. That's true. It's not easy to forget everything. Actually, I also want to spend time playing with you, Odessa. That's no problem, sis. Instinctively, I showed a smile to my sister. During that period, I hoped for an improvement in my relationship with my father. As I entered middle school, my father's attitude became even stricter. In the background, my sister was in her exam period. I tried to accept this, but I realized there were other reasons too. I need to use the bathroom. I told my father I could manage on my own, but I deliberately sought his help. I can't help you right now, he said. Hey, you're a middle schooler now. You should be able to go to the bathroom by yourself, right? I felt this was his true nature. The kind days from before felt like a dream. Furthermore, there was another change. My mother became as cold as my father. Mom, could you help me with something? I asked. I'm busy right now. Maybe later, she responded. I couldn't even rely on my sister. Just like that, their consideration for me gradually faded. Whatever I asked for was often overlooked. Even as a middle school student, the feeling of being alienated by my family was painful. Odessa, you will eat your meals in your room from now on. Why? I asked. Just because, they said. Neither my mother nor my sister said anything. Gradually, I found myself eating alone in my room more often. One reason for the change was the results of a medical diagnosis I received at the hospital. My health was not promising, and my illness was progressing. This was a decision made by my father after learning the truth. Doubts deepened about whether I truly belonged in this family. Why is it only Odessa? Such questions reached my ears while I was studying. Hurry up and get ready. If Odessa is staying home, then I'll stay home too. Are you sure that's okay, Amy? You wanted to go to a private school, right? Yes, that's true, Amy replied. Are you going to defy me? If you want to stay, stay, but give up on going to the private school. I was shocked to hear such unbelievable statements. Finally, the true situation became clear. My father was using the exams as a threat to manipulate my mother and sister. I had never harbored hatred towards my father before, but this was clearly over the line. However, with my limited mobility, I wondered how I should handle this. From that day on, I couldn't stop thinking about the issue. I'm going out for a bit. I'm sorry, Odessa. I'm fine. Don't worry. In the distance, I could hear my father calling. It seemed he was urgently summoning me. Come on, hurry up. Every time I showed a sad expression, I worried that they might overexert themselves because of me, so I decided to act strong. They often left me behind when they went out. If this happens every time, I will gradually become accustomed to the situation. Previously, my father often went out to avoid me, but at some point, he began to act without hesitation. Let's go out to eat today. Let's not go. I think this sudden plan is a bit much. Well, maybe. I decided this. Hurry up. Of course, Odessa will be waiting at home. Amy, who was listening next to me, tried to say something, but I grabbed her arm to stop her. It's okay. Go ahead. You are so kind, Odessa. Wait a minute. Do you know what they say about me at work? You probably don't. My father began to talk about how miserable he was. Even at work, I suffer because I am a father with a daughter who has disabilities. Can you understand how frustrating that is? There is no way I could understand that. Such complaints should not be directed at me. He is hardly fit to be a father. But what can I, a middle school student who needs a wheelchair for mobility and whose life greatly depends on support, do against him? Don't worry, I'll manage on my own. It's okay. My mother and Amy looked at me worriedly. If I go along, I'll just be in the way, and you shouldn't have to worry about how others look at you. Amy was not fully convinced, but she still went out with our parents. I could not predict what would happen if I defied my father. It felt like the wise choice. Even after advancing to high school, my father's attitude did not change. But an incident occurred that made the past seem insignificant. After seeing off my family, I returned to my room. I felt lost, wondering when I would be freed from this life. It's the summer vacation of my 3rd year in middle school. I hate to ask, but could you take care of Odessa for 3 days? Isn't she coming with you? Odessa says she wants to concentrate on her studies, as she is a student preparing for exams. Is that okay? Yes, then leave her to me. That's how I ended up being left at my grandparents' house. Lying had become the norm. It seemed that my father felt no guilt, even lying towards his own parents. Watching him wave goodbye with a smile, I felt an indescribable sense of dread once he was out of sight. My grandmother asked me, "It's just us here. You don't have to hold back. Are you really okay with not going with everyone else?" Being with me, Mom and Amy can't fully enjoy themselves. I want to avoid that at all costs, I replied emphatically. Odessa, you really have a big heart. Not really, but here, I don't have to worry about what others think, and I can relax as I please. Yes, thank you. Perhaps my grandmother sensed what was in my heart, but she did not probe any deeper. I truly felt comfortable here. As a middle school student, I didn't have the power or wisdom to change the situation. Being scrutinized by others was unpleasant, and I was truly grateful for my grandmother's warm support. 3 days later, my mother and sister came to pick me up. "Just the two of you?" I asked. "Sorry, Dad has already gone home." "I see. Was Odessa okay?" "She was very good. This is my advice to you. Make sure you take good care of her." "Yes, I understand," my mother replied. I was listening to their conversation from behind a pillar. On the way home, I said, "I'm fine. You don't have to push yourself." "That's right. We're thinking of you, Odessa." "I know, but I would hate for something to happen to you." When we got home, my father continued to show his usual cold attitude. Normalcy returned. Under normal circumstances, this would have been a breaking point, but I managed to hold on because of my mother and sister's support. However, whether they were following my father's directions or not, they began to clearly avoid me. Being ignored by my father was always the case, but it was extremely painful to see them both starting to act similarly. There were times when I felt completely isolated. "I'm okay. I can do this," I started to tell myself. From then on, I tried to stay in my room as much as possible whenever I was at home. Being in my room meant I didn't have to interact with others, and it spared me from feeling uncomfortable. However, I later realized that this decision was a mistake. It was a spring Sunday during my second year of high school. When I woke up, the house felt unusually quiet. As I headed to the living room, I noticed a piece of paper on the table. "Unfortunately, we have no need for someone with a disability like you. Try your best to live." "What is this?" It was a letter addressed to me. Then, my father called me on my smartphone. "Hello, Odessa. Did you read that letter?" I tried to read it, but that's what it means. Goodbye. Wait a minute. Is there something else? What does this letter mean? It means exactly as it is written. We are tired of supporting someone with a disability like you. Don't worry about us. With that, the call abruptly ended. I pondered how to respond, and then I contacted my mother. "Hello, Mom. From your reaction, I see you've read the letter. So, someone with a disability like me is a nuisance? It's as if I'm some kind of monster." "Yes, but you don't have to worry about anything, hey, because you are not his child. So, rest assured." "What do you mean?" "Explain it to me. Listen, call this number as soon as you can." "Wait, tell me more." "Sorry, he's nearby. I'll contact you again later." I was simply stunned. If what my mother said was true, does that mean I am not my father's biological child? Despite wondering about it, I couldn't find an answer and called the number my mother had given me. The person who answered introduced himself as a lawyer named Rogers. "I am calling as instructed by my mother," I said. "I see. Let's discuss this in detail." Following his instructions, I went to his law office. There, I learned the true meaning behind my mother's words. I was also told the truth about my birth. Initially, the shock was overwhelming, but it seemed that my mother and sister had kept it a secret out of concern for me. Afterward, I started living on my own, thanks to Mr. Rogers's support. I have been living comfortably ever since. 8 years have passed since my mother revealed the truth. During this period, there have been several milestones to celebrate. Amy graduated from college and is now living independently. "Amy, is something wrong?" I asked. "Sorry, it's sudden, but it seems like Dad has found out your address, Odessa." "Hey, just to be safe, please know that Mom and I haven't told him anything." "Yeah, I understand." In fact, I had been in touch with them since moving away from home, of course, without Dad knowing. "Does that mean he's coming here?" "Probably." Okay. Do you think it's okay if I pay him back a little this time? My life now, it's all thanks to Mom and you, right? That might be true. So I want to show my gratitude to both of you in some way, especially for Mom. I left home almost as if I was running away. It's not your fault, sis. Then a week after the phone call from my sister, just as she had said, my father showed up at the apartment where I live. The intercom rang, and I responded. Yes, hello? Odessa, it's been a long time. How could someone with disabilities like you live in a high-rise condo like this? Well, what do you think? Hey, that's not the way you should talk to your parents. Behind my father, I could see my mother standing there, looking apologetic. From her expression, it was clear she had been suffering, even in my absence. Then, I revealed to my father how I had been managing to live this life. Upon hearing this, he directed his anger towards my mother. What are you saying? I had no idea about any of this. I had intended to explain everything properly at first, but when you learned that Odessa had disabilities, your expression changed, didn't it? So what? She's someone else's child, and, moreover, a person with disabilities. When Mr. Rogers had told me this fact, it felt as though my heart had stopped. According to him, I was the daughter of my mother's best friend. My biological father had died in an accident, and my birth mother was in the final stages of cancer with little time left. At that time, I was adopted by my current parents. My biological mother left me a substantial inheritance to ensure I wouldn't face hardships in the future. Additionally, the house I currently live in was previously inhabited by my biological parents. Isn't it inappropriate to blame Mom? I asked. Shut up. No, I won't be silent. I see how terribly you treat Mom. Even after I became independent, my father's violent behavior did not subside. I had been his target before, but now the target was my mother. Don't you think so, Mom? I sought agreement from my mother, and she nodded quietly. What are you talking about without any proof? My father asked. What if there is proof? I replied. I took out my smartphone and played a recording. It captured my father hurling abuse at my mother, eventually escalating to physical violence. How about that? Do you understand now? When was this? Even though I've been living away, we've kept in constant contact. You didn't notice, did you? Well, of course you wouldn't have. You bastard, he yelled, but no matter how much he shouted, it was futile. Since there's this much evidence, you understand what will happen next, right? I asked calmly. What do you mean? He stammered. I looked at my mother and signaled with my eyes. I'm separating from you. What? Of course not. Don't worry, Mom will live here with me. There's no way I'll let you do that, he exclaimed, panicking. Your opinion doesn't matter anymore, I said. He didn't seem to realize this had been planned. What can someone with disabilities like you do? He became agitated and was about to turn violent when a voice interrupted. Stop it. What are you doing? Who are you? My father asked, startled. This person is my spouse, I replied. Spouse? Nice to meet you, I'm Edward, he said calmly. My father lowered his hand in surprise. You knew about this too? He asked, turning to my mother. She nodded. Of course. Amy knows about it too. Without my consent? As her father? Just like that? I'm already an adult, so there shouldn't be a problem. Now, can you please leave? I asked firmly. Just when I thought he would leave, he tried again. Wait a minute. You must have inherited other properties besides this house, right? As a parent, I should have the right to receive part of that inheritance. On what basis do you say that? There is no such right. Seeing my father's desperate demeanor, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. Why are you laughing? He shouted. Because you're making completely irrelevant statements, I said. My father stomped his feet in frustration. The road ahead of you will be tough, but you should do your best. You'll have to pay alimony too. By the way, Grandpa and Grandma already know the situation, so it's pointless to try and rely on them. You really planned it all out to this extent? His demeanor changed completely, and he became quiet, probably reflecting on everything. There's nothing more to talk about, so goodbye. Wait, listen to me. I really apologize. He took a perfect pose of apology, pleading with me. What does it feel like to abandon all pride towards someone you've looked down upon? I wondered, but his apology didn't change my heart. There's no point in doing this, so please leave quickly, I said. Even after all this, you're still not going to forgive me? He asked, sounding desperate. Yes, if you're not going to leave, I will call the police. I have all the evidence and you might get arrested. He hurried away with a frightened look. I took a deep breath, feeling relaxed. Well done, Edward said. Thank you. It was very stressful. Are you okay with me, Odessa? About us living together here? He asked. Yes, it's okay. It's something we all decided together. Yes, this is a place where you can be free, he assured me. I also spoke to my sister over the phone. That's great. See, there's no problem, right? Actually, I wanted to come with you, Amy said. I understand how you feel. Please come visit next time. Yes, I will. In this way, my mother and I became free from my father's control. While we hadn't reached a final resolution yet, we celebrated together that day. After that, we visited Mr. Rogers, the lawyer, with the evidence already gathered. The proceedings went smoothly. I'm grateful for everything, I told Mr. Rogers. It's my duty, after all. Please take care of the situation with your father. The police will handle any issues of violence, but leave the alimony to me. 2 weeks after the consultation, my parents' divorce was officially finalized. This ensured that my mother would no longer be abused by my father. I was truly relieved by this resolution. After the divorce, we moved all of my mother's belongings to our high-rise condo. You've helped me a lot, Odessa, my mother said. I'm glad to do so, Mom. I will continue to express my gratitude through action. You don't have to do that. But I want to, so don't worry, I assured her cheerfully. With that determination, we decided to open a new chapter in our lives together. Whenever time allowed, my sister would visit us. I finally grasped true peace, I remarked with deep emotion. Thank you so much for your help all this time, Amy. That's natural. Blood-related or not, Odessa, you are my irreplaceable sister, she said with a gentle smile. Yes, I replied energetically, but then noticed a slight cloud over my mother's expression. Is something wrong? I asked. Yes, I just received a call from your father, she answered with a hint of confusion. A call? Can I see that for a moment? I took the mobile phone from her and answered the call. I was in error. Would you kindly come back? My father's voice reached me. Mom is coming back, I firmly said. Is that Odessa? So far, I have done the incorrect thing. My father begged, please give me another chance to put things right. I apologize, but it is just not feasible. I said unequivocally, if you understand, then please don't approach us ever again. I gave the phone back to my mother and promptly blocked his number after hanging up. My mother asked, Are you okay? I comforted her. Yes, there's nothing to be concerned about. My father had quit his work and nobody knew where he had gone. Since then, his whereabouts and actions were irrelevant to us, even though he might be living alone somewhere. Our family is still living a happy and contented life together in the interim. It was the first time in my life that I had felt so free. I'm excited to enjoy many more joyful days with my family,